So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Love Juice.
The other day I produced a Louis, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we've decided we can text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of On the Track Extra. As regular viewers will know, twice a week on Saturday afternoons and on Wednesday evenings I bring you a melange of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And I'm trying to get some of my fingers kind of to go all three in the way, but it doesn't work. I'm not very good at this. Over there behind me is my little cat Lilith Tinkerbell, who's a very sweet girl. And regular viewers will know that whenever my dear friend Richard Freeman, who is more like a brother than a friend, and with whom I have been collaborating and making mischief and creating cryptozoology for the last 26 years or so, whenever he comes to stay, whenever we have a chance, we go and raid the shelves of my library, which is, by the way, looking far more like a library than it used to. And because of dear sweet Miss Judy and Miss Shelley is getting really good now. And so by the time Richard Muirhead comes down in January or February, he will be able to make sense of the whole thing. Richard, by the way, as well as being an old friend, Richard Muirhead, as well as being an old friend, is a qualified librarian. So I can't think of anybody better to sort it all out. But when Richard Freeman and I raid the shelves of my library, we usually come up with books. And we come up with books that we think it would be a groovy idea to review in a show episode of On the Track Extra. So, without further ado, Richard, what do we have for this week?
We have Haunted Britain by Anthony D. Hipplesly Cox.
Now, this is weird because I actually knew him. He lived, believe it or not, in Wolseley, where we live today. He was a nice old guy. He came to dinner with my parents once, but he was a little bit airy-fairy and fluffy, something which I don't mind at all, but my parents thought that that probably meant he was a villain of the deepest dye, and as far as I know, he was never invited to dinner again. However, I enjoyed his company as he told us ghost stories and told us about the various things he'd done whilst he was researching this book. Richard.
Now, I had this book as a kid, and I still got it. I got it when I was fairly young. I think I was about 12 when I first got it. Now, it was second hand even then, because it was published in 1973. And what Anthony Hipplesly Cox did, he actually went, I believe with his wife, all over Britain on this huge tour of England, Wales and Scotland. For some reason he didn't do Ireland, but he did the whole of mainland Britain, going from county to county, place to place, and recording not just ghosts. With a name like Haunted Britain you think it'd be ghosts, but he did. And he records hauntings, ghosts and poltergeists, holy healing and wishing wells, sacred magic and mysterious places, witchcraft, sorcery and curses, spectral and mythical beasts and little people, strange customs and festivals, legends including Arthurian and odd stories and buried treasure. And there's like a little key on the back, he does a little logo for each one of those subjects, and he runs not in alphabetical order. Most people, when they do a book going county by county of Britain, they go in alphabetical order, but he's done it in geographical order of how he went up from Cornwall all the way through England, Wales and Scotland. And it's something that stuck with me, because when I did that in my book on Dragon Legends, I did it geographically rather than alphabetically. And he'll go to each place and to each town and village or lane or wood, and then you'll see the name of the place and then the logo of everything there. So if there's a ghost there, there'll be a skull. If there's a mythical creature, there'll be a little logo of a mermaid. If there's a legend, there'll be a unicorn. A buried treasure is a spade, and things like that. And some places, of course, have more than one thing. So it's an absolutely great guide, and if you go through it, you can find the places near to you and go and have a look at them. Or if you're going on holiday, you can have a quick look through and find the places nearest to you. And at the back there's a map, a useful map. So if we open it up at random, let's see. Where are we? Ross and Cromarty. Well, there you've got Loch Ness and Loch Oich with the monsters. I'm sure of this it's got such small print and my eyes are going now and I haven't got my glasses. You've got Garve, where there's a haunted house that's now a hotel where the bells ring mysteriously. You've got Molokai Bay, that's supposed to have a haunted cave there, and you can just open it up at random and you'll find all sorts of fascinating, interesting things. Suffolk, Letterston, where the galley trot is seen in a churchyard. The galley trot is another name for the black dog. Woolpit, a ghostly wolf is seen there.
Really?
Yeah.
Because the only thing I've ever heard from Woolpit is the story of the Green
Children. Yeah, but there's a ghostly wolf is seen and heard.
Does he talk about the Green Children?
No, he just talks about the ghostly wolf.
I've always been interested in ghostly wolves. There are a lot of them in East Anglia and Essex that I think are very interesting, and of course there was the story of the wolf or coyote that was shot in Epping Forest, which apparently the stuffed body of which is still in Ongar Town Hall. And I have been meaning for, crikey, about 4 decades to ask Steve Ignant, who for many years lived at Dial House in Ongar Park. I wanted Steve Ignant to go and check out and see if this ghostly wolf is still there. One of these days I'll get around to it.
But long out of print, but it turns up in second-hand bookshops and it turns up online. So Haunted Britain is absolutely fantastic.
I agree totally with everything that Richard said. It's one of my favourite ghost books. The only reason it isn't my favourite ghost book is because that is Our Haunted Kingdom by Peter Green, which I think is an absolutely magnificent book. But I was just about to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, when I had a Facebook message come through from Alison Jornlin, who is an internet friend of mine who I've known for some time, and she told me the sad news that Linda Godfrey had died.
In the early 1970s there were 2 TV movies and a 20 episode series. called Kolchak the Night Stalker, starring Darren McGavin as Carl Kolchak. He was a reporter in a small Chicago newspaper who always got mixed up with the supernatural. So each week he'd meet a prehistoric lizard or a vampire or a zombie or a werewolf or an alien or a ghost or an incubus, and he would always get his photographs and evidence destroyed, and his long-suffering editor Tony Vincenzo would never believe him, and he'd always be sent off to cover a flower show or something and end up uncovering an android or some sort of monster. And it's my very favourite US TV show ever, and it's probably in my top 3 TV shows of all time. But the real life equivalent of Carl Kolchak was a lady called Linda Godfrey, and she was working on a small newspaper in a town in Wisconsin when she heard about the Beast of Bray Road, a wolfman-like creature that was supposed to have been seen by motorists along this stretch of rural road. And she covered it, thinking there would be nothing to it. It was just a silly little story. But then more and more people came forward claiming to have seen it, including people she knew. So in the end, she wrote a book about it, The Beast of Bray Road, which was a tremendously good book. And then she started to hear stories about these wolfman type creatures from other areas in the US, and then started collecting stories about other strange creatures, and in the end she wrote a whole series of books on weird creatures seen in the USA, and they were absolutely tremendous. Every single one of them was fascinating and had cases that we just never heard about before. I've quoted her an awful lot in my work because her stories and the cases she investigated were so compelling and so bizarre. One of the most interesting was in a town called Oconto Falls, where there was a multi-witness case where people reported seeing a literal bat-winged fire-breathing dragon, a creature from ancient legend, not a pterodactyl or a pterosaur or a thunderbird, a literal dragon. And I corresponded with her about this and on other matters as well, and found her utterly charming and wonderful, and her books are so good, and they are such a wonderful legacy to leave behind, and such a great research tool, a great resource for other forteans and other cryptozoologists. And I'm very saddened to hear of her death, and I only wish she was still around to write more of her wonderful, wonderful books.
And that actually is that for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed it and found it interesting, entertaining, edifying, and all sorts of other things beginning with I or E. And if any of you listening are friends or family of Linda Godfrey, please be aware that my love and good wishes and that of Richard and the whole of the CFZ go out to you all. I'll be back on Saturday. What am I going to be talking about on Saturday? Well, I've actually got a list here of what I'm supposed to be doing. Saturday, we will be visiting Loch Ness to see the latest Loch Ness Monster video and to discuss it and see whether it is actually the proof of the Loch Ness Monster's existence that we've all been told, or whether it's something else. And we are going to be going to Hook Island off the coast of eastern Australia with our old friend Ian Squibbs, who's going to be looking at one of the more regularly praised photographs purporting to be that of a sea monster. And by the way, while we were talking to Richard, did you see something going up and down in the foreground? That is because I have been told I need to exercise my foot to keep the circulation going. So I was doing this, not realizing until it was too late that my foot going up and down was right in the foreground of Richard talking about all the things he's been talking about this time. And, well, sorry guys, and if you are all totally offended by the fact that my foot was going up and down and you think that that has totally ruined your enjoyment of the show and you're never going to watch it again, well, tough. See you next Saturday. Bingo.